But yeah, I want to hear your kind of your life story, your art life story, and how you got started and all that stuff.
As far back as I can remember, my first relationship with art started where my father was an avid science fiction reader, and he'd get these magazines or little books, like pulp books, science
Mm-hmm.
fiction books,
Yep.
and they had these fantastic covers,
Yeah.
science fiction covers. This is back in the, early 50s.
Yeah. Those are the best times for the pulp
Yeah.
book covers.
It's like Galaxy and Amazing Stories,
Yep.
Anyway, yeah. And so I was just totally hooked on those things. And I'm talking about, and that was the first time, that I started to draw. I just, I did it all day long as a kid. I was just completely addicted to it. And I'm sure you were too.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
It was my thing, man. I just loved doing it. And then when I went to school, to kindergarten, like the teacher said, well, you're very good at this.
Hmm.
And it's like, okay, that's me, man. That's because I was not good at anything else. That was the only thing I was good at. And so throughout school, art was, something that I loved to do. My parents, they are not artists. They don't understand art at
Hmm.
all. Well, they're gone now, but they didn't.
Right.
And we had no art on our walls. We had no relatives that were artists. I have a sister, Carol. She's also an artist.
Oh
And
wow.
it's funny that we both became artists because, like, really, there's nothing in our backgrounds. And my parents, they thought, hey, you're good at this, and they bought me little art sets and things to get me going. But as I got older, I was actually discouraged because my father, being, the businessman that he was, thought, uh-oh, this kid's going to try to be an artist. He's going to be screwed.
He wasn't wrong in a way.
No, he wasn't wrong at all. So, like when I became a teenager, he said, you're never gonna, this is a hobby. You better keep it a hobby. Don't think that you can do this, and I had no idea of thinking of making money at it. I
Hmm.
had no concept of money, period.
Right.
But I just I loved doing it for the sake of doing it, and I loved the acknowledgement as
Hmm.
well. My peers, my friends, wow.
Yeah, it's how we built a sense of our own identities, I feel like, as kids too.
Yeah, it became my persona, and thank God I had that because
Yeah, right.
for whatever reason I did terribly in school, even in the early grades. I was in the San Francisco public school district in West Portal,
Hmm.
was barely passed every grade. They put me on a trial basis through every grade 1 through 6, which sucked because I had that hanging over my head that they could tear me back into the grade
Right.
4 at any time,
Yeah.
putting this pressure on me, and I did terribly in school. I think probably I had some kind of dyslexia or
Hmm.
something that prevented me from concentrating. I still can't tell my left hand from my right.
Yeah.
I always go, it's this way, left. Anyway, I got into a lot of trouble in school, and that's where I started using art as catharsis, as getting my feelings out.
Hmm.
So that began in the first grades of school when I was constantly in trouble and up at the principal's office and all this, drawing. That was it. And I would draw during class. I get in trouble for that, blah blah blah, and loved it even more. And then I was at home, and that's all I did. I had friends, but I've always been a bit inward. Anyway, this went on in school, and I finally, got into a lot of trouble, serious trouble in school, and my parents eventually thought, well, we better get him out of the city because there were gangs where we lived and all this. It was no big deal. Like it really is a lot worse now, but
Yeah.
even back then, there were things that were happening, and so we moved 20 miles down the road onto the San Francisco Peninsula and down there, and of course that made it worse because I didn't know anybody down there. I ended up in with the bad crowd down there,
Right.
the artists and the dope smokers.
Right.
But we're talking way back, not we're talking 1964.
Wow.
In my first year at that point, I actually got busted for possession of marijuana in 64. It was a big deal. I was like,
Right. And so
yeah,
I grew up in the 70s, and I
yeah,
remember seeing kids smoke weed, and it was always my brother's friend, my older brother's friends and stuff. It was, it wasn't that big of a thing even in the 70s when it was still illegal. But I
Mm.
want to know, it's like I'm curious in 1964, what
Yeah.
was it like to have weed? Was it like really dangerous to be getting
Oh,
weed and buying
oh
and
yeah.
holding it? Because it's like you could go to jail for
Oh yeah. Yeah, for any
it's
amount.
so crazy to
Any
look
amount.
back on, man.
Any amount. It was like, the worst thing if you, I mean, when I got busted, the cops went to my house, my parents' house, and I was at school and they just went into my room and the principal got me in his office and, we know about you. Cops are at your house right now. So admit it.
Oh my
Admit
God, what
that.
a nightmare.
Yeah, nightmare. I'm a kid, man. Just turned 15.
Oh
And
man.
I had this magazine that I bought on Market Street, like about the Hells Angels, Sonny Barger back in the day.
Uh-huh.
It was a great magazine. I don't know if it ever, I wish I would have been able to keep a copy, but I took all the pictures of all the Hells Angels and put them all over my room, my bedroom. And the cops were so pissed when they saw that, they tore them off the walls, and tore my whole room apart,
Oh my
like
God.
destroyed shit, and found like probably a tenth of a gram of weed in a matchbox because back then you bought a matchbox. A matchbox was like $10, and that was
Uh-huh.
a lot of money. $10 was a hell of a lot of money back. And the weed was just
Yeah,
shit.
terrible, right?
Yeah, but we got super high on it because we were 15, man, and we were doing something really illegal.
Right. What a
So we
trip,
thought.
man.
So
Yeah.
we thought. And then I get dragged through the system,
Oh my God, what a
by the
nightmare.
cops because it was so, me and about five other kids were smoking weed that we were driving up to the city, up to the Fillmore and getting, buying matchboxes. It was
Right.
like,
I didn't mean to go.
yeah,
I didn't mean to
anyway.
get you off on the
No, it's a
weed topic.
tangent. It's part of the story,
Yeah.
because it really changed my work. It changed my art. I
Mm.
suddenly, I was somewhat psychedelicized by that weed, as bad as it was. And then all the paranoia from the cops and feeling like I'm apart from society. And then this whole thing happened in the Haight Street area. And we used to go up there then, in 66 and
Oh
67. And
man, you were there for the prime years.
yeah, yeah. When you were buying Osley acid on the street and,
Wow.
like going to the Avalon Ballroom every weekend and dropping acid and seeing Hendrix and fucking,
Oh my God.
doors. And it was pretty amazing. It was great. And it was magical. It was like probably in my life the most magical time I had because I felt like, wow, this is, I didn't even expect life to be this cool.
Yeah.
I thought it was just going to be, you're going to go to work and I don't know, be Beaver Cleaver or some shit.
Right.
That was the world then.
Yep.
But yeah, that was really, yeah, it was great. But of course, there was a dark side.
Mm-hmm.
The dark side, got me eventually. I think it got almost everyone.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just because I continued to have problems in school, in high school especially, and after this bust, they were really on my shit. I was again still flunking every class except art, and eventually they just threw me out of school. What do you call expelled me, and they sent me to a continuation school
Oh no.
they have for us losers. So we went there. It turned out a lot of really, really cool people were there.
Right.
Really smart, really artistic
Right.
people. Talking 1966, 67. And they said, if you don't want to come to class, that's fine. We'll just let you, as long as you get here, we'll give you a diploma in 4 years, but you just have to show up.
Mm-hmm.
That was like, yeah, okay, that sounds good. But of course, I didn't even show up, so I never graduated.
Mm-hmm.
And I just kind of dropped away from that too. But I did do art every day. It was
Mm-hmm.
like a big art class all the time, and there was a good art teacher there, and he was very supportive. I don't like talking about this part of my life, but it is part of what's formed me and what's created who I am now.
Mm-hmm.
At that point, I started getting. I had some friends who were into amphetamines and darker drugs,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I at first I was okay with amphetamines. I used to take Dexedrine.
Mm-hmm.
They had all kinds of pills like that, and I used to crush them up and sniff them, and then I'd go to the riots in Berkeley,
Wow.
and participate by just nothing. I don't even know what the fuck was going on. I was
Right.
totally not political whatsoever, but I was at the riots because they were so awesome.
Wow.
People throwing tear gas and
Right.
fighting and crazy. It's like total anarchy. And
Yeah.
you're a kid and you just get this and you're on speed, man.
Yeah.
So that was that. And then that just took too much from me, and I started getting into narcotics. In
Mm,
fact, what I was doing is taking that, and then I'd get into narcotics, like painkiller pills
hmm.
to get off that. And then eventually I got into heroin and shooting
Oh,
heroin.
wow.
And yeah, at 17, I was
Whoa.
hospitalized for what they used to call serum hepatitis, which is a form of hepatitis you get from, exchanging, or I mean, using needles with other people.
Hmm.
I was really sick in the hospital. This was 1968, I
Hmm.
think, or 69. Yeah. And I got through it, Um, but I thought, wow, man, what are you doing to yourself? What the fuck? And so after that, not too long after that, I moved. I drove up to Reno, Nevada,
Hmm.
and got a job at Harrah's Club, as a busboy because I wasn't old enough to do much else.
Hmm.
To get away from the influences, to get away from my friends who were still doing that stuff, and
Right.
to many of which either went to prison or died. No, I don't think I know any of them anymore. No, they're all dead now.
Wow.
But I survived by going there, getting away from it, going straight, except, maybe a beer here and there, but mainly just going to work, coming home, and trying to paint a little bit, drawing,
Wow.
drawing back into my artwork. And that was okay. It took me a couple of years and I felt a lot better.
That's
And
amazing. You got
back in,
lucky, man.
they wanted to promote me and put me in the pits and all this shit, teach me how to become a dealer or I mean, they liked me. They thought I was great.
Hmm.
And I didn't want to be up there. I didn't want to do that. I didn't want to work in a casino.
Right.
It's just too much, man. I
Yeah.
so so I came back to San Francisco and I got an apartment for $25 a month on Castro Street.
Oh,
And
wow.
I but up in the high numbers, not in the like by the
Okay.
bar. So yeah, I was there for a while getting this job, that job. I worked at the Cow Palace for a while, shoveling animal shit, just whatever I could get. I tried to get a commercial art job, but totally failed at that because I just couldn't make myself.
You didn't get into the underground comic scene at all?
I loved this comic book scene, but I just never got into it. No, I just kind of went around me. I
Yeah.
mean, loved. I
Yeah.
should have. I should have, but I didn't. I was just into my own
Well,
thing.
who'd have known that it would become what it became back then? I'm sure it was like, oh, these are just cool
Yeah.
comics. Nobody knew that they were going to become Crumb.
Yeah.
Didn't people didn't know
Um,
Crumb was going to become this mega superstar
right.
and all these other guys,
Right. Zap. Zap comics,
Yeah.
man. I love that stuff. I had all that. I still got comics all the time. I didn't mention that comics was a huge influence for me.
Hmm.
Okay, I got off on a tangent. What am I saying now? We were
Uh,
talking about me trying to get different jobs, and I
right.
tried to get a job. There was an ad agency called Pritikin and Gibbons. I don't know if you've ever heard of them. I tried to get in there and get a job and lied my way in, and they just laughed me out of there in a day. And I had no skills, I had nothing going there at all. No high school diploma.
They cared
Uh,
about that back then.
yeah, they did. Everybody did.
Yeah.
They want your education. I don't know. Today, maybe not so much. I wouldn't know. But then it was a big deal. And so what eventually happened, my father, as I mentioned, was a businessman. He owned a small insurance brokerage on Van Ness Avenue in San Francisco, and he had been offering me jobs,
Hmm.
a long time, which I resisted. You don't get me wrong, I loved my dad. He was a great guy, a
Hmm.
really awesome person who I loved and loved deeply. But I didn't want to work for him. I didn't, but that's what I ended up doing. I went to work for him. He specialized in high risk car insurance.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
At that time, a small business like that could flourish, and he was making great money.
Wow.
I went into it as the receptionist
Hmm.
and learned the business. And I ended up being in that business for over 20 years.
Wow.
I ended up buying him out and being the owner of that
No
business.
way. Really?
So I was an insurance broker
What was it?
until I was 47 years old or some shit. That's what I
Wow.
did, man. Yeah.
Wow. So
Yeah. Yeah.
did you make good money then? I
Yeah, I
hope at
did.
least.
That was a big problem because it was hard to step away from that money,
Yeah, I bet.
because you get used to it.
Yeah.
And I hated the job. I
Oh,
really,
really? Were
really
you
hated it.
Oh, okay. So you hated the job, but you're making
I
great money.
I had a yeah, square peg in a round hole. I of course got, the feeling of accomplishment of work and doing this
Mm-hmm.
hard, difficult task, but it meant nothing.
All right.
The whole time I'm thinking, you're an artist, man. And for a few of the first years of that job, I stopped doing art and I started just really
Wow.
feeling terrible, started drinking,
Hmm.
a little bit, which was I knew that was the wrong direction.
Right.
So what I started doing, I remember I went out and saw the original Alien, when it first came to the theaters. I
Mm-hmm.
knew nothing about it at all. Walked in there by myself on matinee during the day and just walked away like I just had, both fingers in an electric socket, man.
Mm-hmm.
I saw his art and flipped, read a little about him, and he's an airbrush artist. What? And went out and bought an airbrush,
Wow. Yeah.
not realizing you had to have an air compressor. So I bought, oh, what? I couldn't use it.
Blow, blow in the
Yeah,
tube.
yeah. But, then I went out and got an air compressor. And I started working at night trying to learn how to do airbrush art.
Uh,
I started drawing again, and so it turned out to what I called my second wind. I'd go in there and work 8 hours in there or whatever, and then come home, have a quick dinner, and go right into my little room that I used as a studio
mhm.
and work until I had to go to sleep for years.
That's what I did too.
Never stopped wanting to be an artist, and as I got better, I actually, got into painting. I did a lot of airbrush work in the beginning. In fact, one good example you might even know is I did an album cover back in the 80s. I'm trying to remember. Okay, do you know the Sausage album? Okay, you know who did
Oh
that?
yeah, yeah.
Okay,
That's Les Claypool from
Les Claypool,
Primus.
right. Yeah, Primus.
Yeah, you did that
That's
album cover?
yeah, that's my art
No
from
way.
back then.
I love
That's
that.
an airbrush piece I did
No,
back
I had
in
that
the
album. That's amazing.
yeah,
I
okay.
always wondered who did the cover. I was like, that's so cool.
That was I don't know how he found me, man. So I was doing art and I started getting like this was a big deal, really, because they put this on the billboards at Tower Records,
Hmm.
both LA and San Francisco. And I went down to San Francisco Tower and there I'm looking up at my art and I'm like, what are you doing selling shirts? The best years of your life are just going into the sewer, man.
Right.
Really.
You saw the possibility.
I saw the possibility that I could actually be a working
Right.
artist and the potential was there. And, for most of my life up till then, I thought, no, you could never be more than a hobbyist with this.
Right.
But I started thinking differently. And of course, this was becoming problematic in my mind because I didn't want to do what I was doing, but I saw no way out.
Yeah, this is I don't I'm going to interrupt you just quickly, but this is so similar to my experience in the makeup effects business. Even though that's like an art, it is an art kind of business. I was a sculptor making
Yeah.
monsters, doing stuff like Alien, So it was
Sounds
awesome when I started out, but I did it for like 20 years and there was a point where I was like this is like a job now. It's art directed, it's you're part of a process, you're a pair of hands for someone else's vision. And towards
right.
the end of it, I had that same feeling you did, like your life is slipping away and you're not getting to express this art. And so I started doing working after work and on weekends. I would start
Mhm.
teaching myself to paint. And I did that for 7 years. But similar, even though
That's
I mean, insurance is way, way worse than
way,
sculpting and makeup effects. Don't get me wrong. I probably was a little spoiled because it's kind of an amazing job. And I did it right out of high school. I got into it. But still, it got to that
right.
point. So I
Yeah.
totally relate to this.
And you had your potential and you knew it was there and you had to find an outlet but your time, your
Yeah.
time and time is so precious, man.
Yeah.
So,
As you get older, you notice
oh
that
yeah.
more and more. And then the thing that reminded me is you seeing those your album cover on a billboard was like me working in effects and having my name be at the very end of the movie below craft services and the electricians.
Mhm.
Like you're a cog in the machine. It started showing, and then I would start selling work here and there. And so
Mhm.
I was seeing like, oh, I can do this. I can actually get out.
Well, that is my story
I
too. It
know
got
exactly.
harder and
That's what.
harder, man,
Okay,
you know.
so keep going now.
Well, yeah, I went on and continued to do work every night and on the weekends mostly. But I still didn't see any way out.
Hmm.
I really didn't see a way out. I could have taken many ways out, but I was not willing at that point to do it. And, I could have sold out. But having a business like that, owning a business, it's like having a tiger by the tail because you're responsible for all these clients with
Hmm.
these insurance policies. And you can't just walk out the door and say, I quit
Right.
because you have a fiduciary responsibility. You have a license that you have to, where you promise to take care of these policies and make sure they're serviced
Hmm.
and this and that. So I felt stuck and
Right.
I went on and on. And, honestly, what happened towards the end is my little problems started to come back. I started, drinking a lot.
Hmm.
And, another thing happened. My father he died. He was an alcoholic and
Uh,
he had it's called Korsakoff syndrome. And, it's a form of dementia or
oh
it
no.
manifested as a form of dementia in him. It was terrible to see my father, who I admired so much, to be torn down to nothing,
Right.
like a human automaton. He was just, he would just stare at you and he
Uh,
wasn't there. And we had to put him in this shitty hospital that smelled like death. And,
right.
I'd go in there and I would get so depressed
Yeah.
and I'd come out and, go out and get smashed myself and
Right.
get into a bar fight or some fucking thing, man. I mean, I'm no fighter. And so I'd get my ass kicked and start getting into this shit
Yeah.
again. And again, eventually, I started taking narcotics for the hangovers
Mm.
because they were worse than they ever were at my age.
Right.
And this is my 40s, okay? So I'm strung out on heroin a little bit
Hmm.
when I'm 17 years old, but I go 20 more years, 37, almost straight, and then start drinking again. And by the time I get to about 45, I'm back strung out on like M80s, this narcotics,
Hmm.
and eventually, yeah, heroin again.
Wow.
Because up in the city, you can get heroin anywhere. And where I
Hmm.
live, they would just come to my house and shit.
Wow.
Anyway, so there I was now. I was running this business. This is what I hate to say. It sounds so unprofessional. I was running the business and strung out on heroin.
Wow.
Things got very ugly and dark
I bet.
for me during that period. I was still doing artwork, but it was very dark.
Hmm.
What did I do? Fortunately, I had met this girl who is now my wife,
Mm.
who's really, who I don't deserve at all. But she's damn amazing. And she said, "Look, man, you are wasting your life, and I'm going to help you. We're gonna sell this fucking business." And get you off the junk and fucking, you're going to be an artist.
Wow.
And if I have to support you, I will.
Amazing.
And she is a very high-end makeup artist, works for celebrities.
Mm.
Yeah, it's a great end to the story. I
Yeah.
mean, she actually, so many things happened. Like there was this tipping point,
Hmm.
a big tipping point on July 4th, 1995. I was home drunk as shit,
Hmm.
taking pills and taking mushrooms
Wow.
and just this crazy shit that I was. And I was, alone,
Mm.
but people kept coming over and I don't remember who they were. And all I know is I woke up at some point, I think it was 4 a.m., and my house was in flames,
Oh my God.
absolutely in flames. And I'm sitting in the middle of this fire.
Oh my God. Are you serious?
Yeah, probably the only thing that woke me up was the mushrooms. Thank God. Uh,
That's
so
incredible. Oh my
Oh yeah.
God.
Anyway, so the house, somehow I woke up and the house was on fire. I wound up losing everything. It went to the ground and I lost everything I had, all my clothes. I was left with really nothing after that. And my wife, my girlfriend then came over and said, "Well, you really fucked it up this time," and took me into her
Wow.
house. That's the only place I had to go. I didn't even have any shoes. I burned my feet running out of the fire because
Wow.
I was barefoot and I had to run over burning floor to jump out the fucking door on the other side of the house into the yard, into the garden. It was a gorgeous house. It was a little house I was renting, but it was built by this guy who used to be the director of the San Francisco Art Institute, Ernest Munt, and he designed it. It was like all these curved walls
Oh
and
my
stuff. It's
God.
really like a treasure, which
Yeah.
I burned down.
Wow.
Thank God. He forgave me because he was sort of a mentor to me in my art too,
Hmm.
because he saw my art and he would come down and make, help me make commentary about my work. And his work was beautiful. He was amazing. The German guy from the 30s, from the Hitler
Wow.
era. He had to, get out of Germany.
Wow.
But anyway, that's another.
Wow. Well, that's kind of like a kind of a symbolic thing to happen. Your whole life burning down and then you
Yeah,
starting a new life.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
I
Like
really,
it was worth it. It was worth it to get, you know what I
in
mean?
the end, it
Because it
was.
could have been you that was burned.
It could have been
You
me,
could have been
and it
you.
was, if I hadn't woken up when I did, and just thought you got to run.
Oh,
If I had hesitated for
yeah.
any period of time, I probably would have started choking on the smoke.
Shh.
But it was just a wall of flame right in front of me and all
Wow.
around. So anyway, I got out with just minor burns on my feet, and I was all sooty,
Yeah.
and lost everything. And that collection that I had of things, that was like so much of my persona then. That was
Hmm.
almost like the way I identified myself to others, through saying, look at me.
Right.
This is
Yeah,
this is these are the things I love, and
that's kind of what I'm saying though. It's like that old persona had to be kind of destroyed for you to start again.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah, yeah. I sure do now. It was terrible. And of course, as soon as I got out, at first I could not take, I had to take drugs because I couldn't even face it,
Right.
what had
Yeah.
happened,
Yep.
but over time, I went into a rehab
Mm,
thing and left before it was up. But eventually I, got clean.
good.
We moved down to Los Angeles. She went down there. I stayed in her house that she was renting, and she found the most amazing place in Los Angeles, like a little house on a dirt road up in Mount Washington. Magic. And she actually financed for me to teach myself how to paint. And
Wow.
that's where I'm at now. Everything you see here is since that time. I live in we bought a house right up the road. We got a great deal, and really didn't have that much money, but we remodeled a whole new house around the little shack that
Wow.
existed there over a period of a year and a half. And this is where I have flourished
Yeah.
since then, as an artist, and become, the thing that I dream to be. Somewhat financially secure at times. The first how
Yeah,
it
as
is.
much as artists ever are.
Yeah,
Up and down, yeah.
real up and down. But it's great because I love life now more than I ever have.
Yeah.
And it sucks that I had to spend 30 years figuring that out, or whatever it was, actually 50 years. I started really doing artwork on a daily basis every day, and I was 52 years old. So I started becoming an artist at 52.
Wow.
Yeah. So now I'm 72, and
Happy as
still
hell.
learning,
Yeah.
still learning, but happy. Yeah. You know,
You got the
I
life now.
now I'm yeah, I'm
You got it
I'm waiting
made.
for the
But I mean, that goes to show that, if you have that in you and you are an artist, you have to, if you don't do it, it's destructive. It can destroy
it
you.
is.
The problem stemmed from you not being able to be your authentic self as an artist.
Yes. Yes. I wouldn't dream of wanting to get high right now because I wouldn't be able to work. So many people I know with money, that doesn't buy you happiness at all. And when you get to be my age, you realize how important it is
Yeah.
to enjoy your life, man. It is a finite thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Great.
I've got my second life going on now.
Yeah.